So, before you settle in, pull your blanket tight, lower the lights on whatever little glowing rectangle you're watching me from, and let the faint hum of your fan become the white noise wind outside our stone-walled prison. Hit that like button only if you actually enjoy falling asleep to my bad decisions in medieval research, and drop a quick comment telling me what time it is where you're listening from. All set? Good, because tonight we're crawling into the one place colder, darker, and lonelier than a monk's confession booth, a medieval ice house. Imagine it's late winter somewhere in northern Europe, 1328. The river's crusted thick enough to hold a cart. The sun rises like a pale coin you briefly mistake for the moon. And everything you breathe steams and hangs in front of your face as though it would rather be smoke than air. The Manor's lord has declared that his summer ale absolutely must be served chilled at the midsummer feast, and someone, lucky you, has drawn the short straw of tending the freshly harvested ice in the great subterranean pit until June. At first glance, the ice house doesn't look impressive. Just a low mound near the orchard rim, capped by turf, door framed in timbers blackened by another century's worth of rains. But step closer, watch your footing on those moss-slick stones, and you feel it. A gravity of cold dragging at your breath, tugging warmth out of your knuckles before the latch even lifts. Inside is a staircase so narrow you have to sidestep downward. Left hand on a rope, right hand gripping a single tallow candle because the Lord cut costs on lanterns weeks ago. The smell hits first. A mineral wetness, like buried rivers and last harvest's apples rotting under hay. Then the silence, layered deeper than any church crypt. No birds, no horses, just the soft crackle of frost regrowing on frost, like tiny bones knitting themselves in the dark. You remember, too late, the stories the other servants swapped at the cook fire, of men who disappeared down here overnight when a stack of ice blocks shifted, of beasts, rats maybe, or something with cleverer teeth, nesting in straw bales and gnawing whatever living thing wandered too near in search of warmth. But the steward slapped you on the shoulder this morning, said, "It's just a bit of quiet watch. Keep the ice from melting. Keep thieves from pinching the better blocks." Easy. Except, nothing about this job is easy. First problem, you're dressed wrong. Typical wool tunic, hose, threadbare cap, fine for a blustery February afternoon. Down here, that's the wardrobe equivalent of bringing a goose feather to a joust. After 10 minutes, you can't feel your toes. After 30, your candle's tallow stiffens, shortening the flame until it barely sputters. Your breath freezes against your mustache, crusting like sea salt. You try pacing small circles to stay warm, but the floor is a slippery mosaic of ice chips and sawdust, and the ceiling curves low. One wrong step and your forehead meets stone. Second problem, time. Clocks are a luxury of monasteries. You measure the night by the way your mind starts playing tricks. At some unknown hour, you're convinced you hear a child crying somewhere beyond the stacked ice. Another hour, a creaking, like wood ships on rough water. Just the timber settling, you tell yourself. But when a bigger groan echoes, something somewhere shifts, and a cold flake of snow drifts down your collar from nowhere. That's when you remember how these blocks were dragged here, cut, loaded on sledges, hauled by oxen. Men laughing in daylight, slipping, cursing, but working in teams. Now you're alone among hundreds of those same blocks, each weighing more than a grown warhorse. If one slips its straw, it'll pin you like an ant beneath a glass. Third problem, the wildlife. You spot the first rat by lantern shadow flicker, then two more. Their fur is puffed thick with frost, eyes like black cabochons. They don't scatter, they stare, because you have something they want, warmth. Or maybe the bread heel in your pouch mashed by your belt. You toss it into a corner. The squeaks are brief and savage, echoing off the curvature of the pit while you hug yourself and try not to imagine teeth testing your leather boots next. Somewhere above, a muffled clang. The outer door drawn shut by careless hands. Did they forget you? Is it dawn? Dusk? You call up, but voice dulls against sod and timber. You picture the steward shrugging, saying, "He'll be fine. He's bedded in with the ice," then wandering off for hot pottage while you count the seconds between drips from the ceiling. Standing watch means maintenance too. You prod every straw-cushioned wall from melting, stomp sawdust into soft patches where water beads. You discover an entire layer undermined by damp. One shove and the icy shelf slides half an inch toward you. You freeze, figuratively and literally, as the mass settles with a low shudder. If it had gone farther, you'd be entombed under a few thousand pounds of the Lord's chilled drink insurance. You whisper a wheezy curse and resolve to keep to the center aisle. Hunger gnaws quicker in cold. The beans you swallowed at supper feel like stones now. You wished you'd pocketed an apple, but apples are for healthy servants, not ice keepers who'll never taste summer cider because pneumonia will claim them by Lent. You reach instead for your wineskin, only to find the liquid a slush that burns your tongue with its chill. Another hour passes, measured by the pain migrating from fingers to wrists to elbows. You think of the carpenters who built these supports. Wonder if they're still alive. Wonder if they drew extra pay. Probably not. With no window to gauge the moon, your mind recoils inward. You recall verses the village priest mutters at funerals. Cold earth, colder sins, amen. And briefly envy the dead their stillness. You consider singing to stay awake, but song feels blasphemous here. Sound is swallowed too quickly. So you speak random memories aloud. Your sister chasing bees, the smell of rye bread, the crack of frost-stiff laundry. Each word becomes visible steam, then vanishes, like everything warm ever does. Your candle guttered an era ago, replaced by the second stub you brought. That one shrinking too, dripping wax onto your cracked knuckles. You wonder what happens if it dies before relief arrives. Total darkness in a chamber whose exit you can't find by feel without stumbling into frost walls. You picture crawling, hands ahead, finding nothing but slick plains, cold corners. Rat claws scurry behind you. You promise any saint listening that if you get out, you'll never complain about chamber pot duty again. Suddenly, footfalls, heavy, deliberate, on the stair. You whirl, candle flares, and see a shape, man-sized, hooded, carrying an unlit torch. Heart thunders. Could be the steward, could be a thief after ice to sell in town. Either way, you croak a greeting. The figure stops, sparks flint, and the torch blooms into sullen light. It's merely Willem, the mill boy, cheeks red as hawthorn berries. He squints. "Your turn's up," he says, as though you spent the night napping by a hearth. You nearly laugh, except your jaw's too numb. Clambering out behind him, every step upward feels like someone driving nails into the soles of your feet. Fresh air burns, daylight blinds. But warmth, slight though it is, feels like sinfully soft wool. You glance back once at the door as Willem latches it. He whistles an idle tune. He hasn't yet felt the silence swallow his name. He will. Back in the buttery, you slump by the fire and watch fingers twitch back to pink life. No one praises you. The steward only reminds, "You're back on shift tomorrow night because the Lord wants extra ice stored, just in case." You nod, because refusing means losing your post. And in a medieval estate, no post means no coin, no shelter, no bread. Better frostbitten toes than none at all. So when you finally coil into a straw mattress before noon, the sun strangely high, you realize something. You survived. Barely, but through shivers and shadows, you did your job, and the job nearly unmade you. That's what it means to keep ice in a world before freezers. It's a daily duel with cold, darkness, and the weight of a social order that values chilled wine over your heartbeat. And that was only night one. Ready to stumble back down those steps with me and see how quickly courage melts in the dark? Let's do it. If this frigid tale is helping you drift off, or at least making your own bedroom feel cozy by comparison, tap that subscribe button so you never miss a midnight misery. Drop a snowy in the comments to prove you made it this far, and share where you're listening from. The next evening arrives disguised as late afternoon, a grayish gloom soaking through the manor yard like watered ink. The kitchen girls gossip that spring might come early, an insult, you decide, because your orders have doubled. 2 nights on shift, 1 night off until Easter. Apparently, the Lord tasted chilled pear cordial today and declared it necessary for Lent. You could point out the irony of fasting with iced luxury, but peasants who quote scripture at their betters end up reciting psalms in the stocks. So you swallow your opinion alongside a hunk of barley loaf that tastes like damp burlap and head back to the mound imprisoning yesterday's heartbeat. No one walks with you this time. Even the hounds keep a polite distance, noses wrinkling at the cold seeping from the wooden door. You pause to rub spruce resin on your gloves, a trick taught by the carters, hoping the stiff sap will seal tiny holes before wind flays your knuckles again. Then you brace shoulder to timber, hear the latch groan, inhale that unmistakable breath of stone and snow and secrets. Down the stairs you descend, counting steps aloud so your courage can keep up. 1, 2, 3. Your voice cracks on 11. By 22, the air itself seems to discourage syllables. You reach the straw-covered floor, raise the rush torch Willem left wedged in the wall, and strike flint. Sparks leap, catch, glow orange against the frost-laden ceiling like captive fireflies. Light edges outward, revealing the ice blocks in all their murderous serenity. Tonight, you inspect the southern stack first. Yesterday's near slide nagged your dreams, so you tug gently at each straw-packed bab, tapping timber braces the cooper swore would survive an earthquake. They answer with hollow thuds that echo in unsettling ways, as if implying that sound itself might crack them.
You shuffle backward, satisfied enough, and scrawl a chalk mark on the archway. O. The steward demanded nightly sigils proving you checked. He'll never enter to verify. It's too cold for men who sign parchments. But bureaucracy must be fed like any other beast.
Hour 1. Silence and simple chores. You hack loose ice chips with your hand axe, fill wooden buckets, and carry them up half the stair to leave near the outer door. Meltwater is precious for the kitchen. Your breath fogs the corridor so thick you feel you're slogging through milk. When you lift the axe again, the iron head peals a clear note against the frozen slab. Music in a key only winter hears. Hour 2. You practice the ancient art of not thinking about warmth. Dreaming of warmth is dangerous. It invites shivering. Instead, you catalog the shapes around you. This block resembles a bishop's mitre. That one, a hunched boar. You start naming them: mitre, boar, half-moon, widow's peak. So the space feels mapped, less monstrous. Somewhere behind mitre, a drip echoes steady as a metronome. A crack in the roof? No. You find later it's a leather water skin hung by last week's watchman as a cruel joke. Frozen solid now. You leave it. Maybe it'll rattle like a warning bell if anything shifts. Hour 3. Hunger. You ration half an oatcake and a thimble of salted lard. Cold robs all flavor, but fat keeps life's candle burning. You chew until jaw muscles protest, then tuck the rest within your tunic, close to skin, hoping body heat will soften tomorrow's bite. Your toes tingle, then numb. They're running the same retreat they did yesterday, sensation fleeing first from tips, then arches. You flex them inside the stiff boots, mutter threats. Stay alive, or I'll bury you in the pig yard. Toes are immune to insults. Torch sputters. You swap in a fresh reed bundle but save the dying stub. Tallow is rationed like gold. While fumbling with flint, something scuttles overhead. Not rat, but larger, heavier. You freeze, listening. Nothing. Then a faint paw scrape across the turf roof. A fox? A stray dog? You hope so. Then consider, what if that weight presses snow enough to collapse a weak beam? You bite lip till you taste iron. Tell yourself the roof lasted decades. It won't choose your watch to betray. Hour 4. Fatigue sets its hooks. Knees buckle when you stand too quick. To fight it, you recite every insult you recall from village lads drunk on festival ale. Cow-hearted codpiece, pickled eel brains. You laugh at the absurdities echoing in frost. Laughter warms a little. Still, lids droop. You kneel, rub handfuls of crushed ice across face and neck. Shock therapy outdated before discovery. Movement helps, so you muster the courage to patrol the far tunnel. This part of the pit narrows to a crooked dogleg. Straw mats sink to uneven depths, and ice blocks loom closer to ceiling, a frozen gauntlet. You duck low, torch ahead. At the bend, you discover a tiny alcove you'd missed, a nook where 2 blocks parted just enough to form a cavity waist-high. Inside sits an object wrapped in linen. The cloth is stiff, ice-caked. Curiosity overrides caution. You tug it free. Unwrap. Torchlight reveals a carved wooden cup inlaid with pewter swirls. A drinking vessel, forgotten or hidden. Why here? Maybe a servant stashed personal property. Maybe a thief hid loot, intending to reclaim. Or maybe Your skin prickles. It's an offering to some spirit of cold, a bribe for safety. You rewrap hastily, shove it back. Let sleeping curses lie.
Hour 5. Uninvited thoughts arrive, wearing faces of lost loved ones. Mother, dead from fever 5 winters past, appears across the chamber, hands cupped as though warming them at a hearth only she sees. She mouths something you can't hear. You blink, she's gone. Exhaustion spins illusions, you remind yourself, but tears still sting, freezing before they fall. Hour 6. The steward appears at the top of stairs, lantern bobbing. Relief? No. He simply checks your chalk marks from safety of the threshold, calls down, "Any trouble?" You shake head, voice cracks into hoarse, "No, sir." He nods, satisfied, closes door again, taking precious warm air with him. Resentment swells, then cools. Everything cools here. Hour 7. Disaster flirts. While rearranging straw at Widow's Peak, you feel vibration under boots. A muffled crunch like bone under weight. You whirl just as the block leans outward a finger's width. Straw snaps, timbers creak. Reflex hurls you sideways. Torch tumbles dangerously near sawdust. You snatch it back, heart hammering. The block halts, precarious. You wedge spare beam beneath, pack fresh straw, whisper every saint's name in your memory. When it holds, you slump against wall, lungs aching, and vow next shift you'll insist on extra bracing, if speaking up doesn't cost you wages. Hour 8. Dawn? You pray so. Your candle stash dwindles. Breath comes shallow, chest muscles stiff. You pace a narrow loop, slapping arms, humming a bawdy tavern reel about a miller and a goat, anything to stay conscious. Drifting off here means waking under ice or not waking at all. At last, boots thump above. Willem again, yawning. Light spears through the crack as door lifts. He whistles a cheery tune, pauses to spit phlegm. "Cold as a witch's," he starts. You bark. "Just hand me the torch." He blinks, registers your cracked lips, shadow-rimmed eyes, and wordlessly offers the lit brand. You take it like a man accepting judgment, then stagger toward stairs. Each step upward an agony of thawing joints. Outside, the world is brilliant with early sun. Birds peck frost-stiff earth. A dairymaid laughs somewhere. All proof life persisted without you. You shuffle to kitchen where steam billows from cauldrons. The cook snorts at your blue lips, pushes a bowl of porridge your way. You grip it with shaking hands, savor the wooden spoon's warmth. But as you swallow, you remember the hidden cup, the shifting block, the specter of your mother's frozen whisper. You're scheduled again tomorrow, earlier, Lord's orders. And you realize the ice house isn't just a storage pit, it's a lesson carved in winter stone. The past is never as frozen as we think, and the present can crack under the smallest weight. But for now, let porridge scald tongue, let hearth smoke sting eyes, for these small burns prove you're alive. Mid-afternoon light fades faster than usual, swallowed by a bruised sky that promises sleet. The steward finds you dozing upright against the grain shed and slaps a payslip across your chest. Tonight's shift begins early. The Lord is hosting a winter feast, which means cold wine, chilled custard, and goose grease that must not congeal before reaching noble lips.
More ice is required, immediately. You swallow a protest, pocket the slip, and head toward the pit that already owns your bones. At the entrance, you pass the cooper and two lads dragging a sled piled with fresh-cut blocks. They grunt a greeting that sounds suspiciously like last rites. One boy's nose has bled onto his collar. He wipes it and shrugs. Nothing unusual when air razor slices capillaries. You thank them anyway, because without new ice, your walls sag inward. They nod, then hurry back to the courtyard fire, desperate to salvage feeling in their fingers. Door thumps shut behind you. The pit exhales that familiar metallic breath, half rust, half midnight churchyard. You descend carrying only your hemp satchel. Inside, 3 rush torches, a wedge of smoked turnip, and a scrap of wool you've named Mercy. Mercy serves as scarf, mitten, and occasionally imaginary pet. You stroke it once for luck, then pocket it again. Torch lit, you start inventory. Lord's Feast demands the purest blocks, clear as almoner's glass. Those sit deepest, compressed by months of weight. You weave through corridors like archivist among fatal volumes, chalking an X on anything cracked, O on anything ready. The ledger in your head tallies 90 pounds of flawless ice required. You curse arithmetic. It never works in your favor. The pit seems narrower tonight. Frost has crawled outward, thickening pillars into misshapen ribs. Each breath puffs white, but doesn't drift. It simply hangs, a ghost reluctant to leave. You move carefully, as though disturbing those ghosts might bring walls down. Straw crunches underfoot. Some patches are rimed solid, intent on tripping you. You mutter your new mantra: balance, brace, breathe. At the western alcove, you discover yesterday's emergency brace has slipped. Widow's Peak block now leans like a drunken friar. Tiny ice needles ring its base, evidence of slow grind downward. You jam shoulder beneath timber, push, nothing. You fetch the iron bradawl, hammer it between block and beam until wood squeals and settles a finger's width back. Your arm throbs, but crisis recedes, for now. Sleet begins above ground. You sense it in subtle tremors as frozen pellets tap the turf roof. Drumming grows steady, then frantic, as though heaven hammers a kettle drum. You imagine moisture seeping through seams, sneaking down to kiss the ice, promising it freedom. Your pit loves such promises. They lead to betrayal. An hour later, the steward's porters arrive to haul blocks. You lead them to the chosen stack and oversee extraction. Their leather grips squeal, blocks skitter. One porter swears creatively when a shard slices his thumb. Blood beads bright red, instantly paling to maroon. You bandage him with a strip torn from your own sleeve. Linen lost, but maybe the saints keep score. With the load gone, the cavity yawns like a pulled tooth. You cannot leave it empty. Collapse follows voids. You hike to the upper shelves, pry loose younger blocks, cloudy, less valuable, and slide them down to fill the gap. It's glacier Tetris played with your livelihood on the line. When finished, you sign the cross, exhale, and stomach growls. You duck into a side nook, nibble smoked turnip. It is bitter, but bitterness is better than numbness. Bitterness reminds you of preference, and preference is privilege. Somewhere in the dark, a droplet falls, plink, into a wooden pail you didn't place. You trace sound, find a crack in ceiling timber. Meltwater seeps along a root, freezing, thawing, dripping again. Each drop is steel on faith. You wedge straw into fissure, knowing it's bandage on broken bone, but doing nothing would be worse. Lids sag. You slap cheeks, recite Psalm 88, darkest of them all, perfect fit. The words echo off stone, return changed, almost chanting themselves. You realize monks once used cold to sharpen prayer. Perhaps they were onto something. You finish with Selah and feel stronger for the syllable. A low rumble interrupts. At first, you blame belly. Then, earth shivers. Not earthquake, sleds above. Porters loaded again, rolling across cobbles. Vibration ripples through rafters like harp strings plucked by giants. You brace arms against opposite walls, watch dust sift from ceiling. Nothing breaks, but tension clings long after silence returns. Halfway through, Shift the steward's page descends, bearing a covered lantern and orders, fetch snow sugar, the fine frost that accumulates where drafts curl. It's to sprinkle atop honeyed figs, apparently the latest continental fashion. You almost laugh. Instead, you escort him along side passages, carving frost into a pewter bowl with a flat spoon. Page shivers violently, his voice cracks. "How do you stand it?" You answer truthfully, "I pretend it's worse elsewhere." He doesn't know whether to scoff or weep, so he thanks you and flees. Alone again, you inventory tools. Axe blade nicked, straw reserves low, chalk nub almost gone. You add petition for supplies to mental list that grows faster than ice. Then you stroll perimeter with torch held high, scanning for micro-avalanches. Near Widow's Peak, you notice glistening puddle on straw, fresh, not present earlier. You kneel, touch, water. Your stomach drops. You look up. The block weeps along a new fracture shaped like a lightning bolt. Temperature must have risen a hair due to body heat, torches, or Lord's extractions. Hair is enough. You grab the longest timber, jam it beneath crack, wedge with mallet until wood groans. Then you shovel extra straw over puddle to absorb. Not elegant, but dawn isn't far, you pray. Minutes later, torch guttering warns shift end. You ascend stairs slowly, each step heavier than laborer's cart. Outside, sleet has turned to heavy snow, blanketing courtyard in muffled hush. You hand torch to the next watcher, Matteo, new lad, freckles, cocky grin that will freeze by hour 2. You give him your notes, emphasize the crack. He nods, but eyes the kitchen windows where warmth spills yellow. You almost pity him. You report to steward, deliver chalked slate. He merely grunts, counting wine flasks. You dare, "More brace timber, sir, and straw, and tallow." He waves without looking. You leave, unsure if request registered or gavayapparated like breath in moonlight. In bunkhouse, you thaw boots by coals. Feet blister, then itch, a sign of returning life. You rub them with goose grease, wrap in rags, collapse onto straw pallet. The snoring chorus of other servants fades as dream ice slides over mind.
But before surrendering, you recall the meltwater, the lightning crack, the hidden cup days ago. You promise yourself to carve a drainage channel tomorrow, though such initiative could earn praise or punishment.
Dawn refuses to brighten, so you invent your own sunrise by sparking a rush torch against a flint and letting the flame wobble to life in the murk. Turbid smoke curls up the shaft staircase, painting wet stone with soot. You bank the torch sideways to keep it from guttering and begin the descent, boots squelching in yesterday's slush. The ice house smells of pine pitch, moldy straw, and the faint metallic sting of iron, like licking a cold coin. Somewhere deeper, the walls pulse, settling with midnight sighs. You answer with your own, then square your shoulders. Another shift, another slow bleed of body heat into the Lord's private glacier.
Your first task is simple on paper. Retrieve 3 flawless blocks for the day's midday repast. Eel pies demanded chilled crusts this season, apparently the height of fashion at court. But a warm front has crept in overnight, sneaking through chinks in the turf roof, turning the upper tiers into Drip Town. A single degree of mercy outdoors means disaster below. Cracks spider across blocks, straw mats sag, tiny icicles melt, reform, detach like glass daggers. You watch one fall past your shoulder, burying itself point first in straw. The ice house never misses a chance to remind you who is prey. You unroll a length of hemp rope, loop it around the first candidate, an oblong prism buried against a back wall, and tug. It slides, but the straw beneath clings, sticky with water that instantly refreezes under friction. Your wrist twinges. You shift weight, pull again. 10 more inches, only 70 to go. You pace breaths with effort, inhaling through nose to spare lungs the shock of cold. Once the block reaches aisle, the porter team can hook it, but for now, this is your private dance. Behind you, faint creak. You spin, torch casting jittery halos. Nothing, just your imagination, or perhaps the patron spirit of the pit keeping score. Still, you straighten timbers piled as emergency bracing. One is cracked along the grain. You set it aside and mark a chalk X for replacement. You've learned. Ignore small warnings. Reap large funerals. Block secure. You leave it to acclimate. Sudden warm air in kitchen can fracture it. A brief tempering saves embarrassment. Next agenda, drain channels. Yesterday's sleet snuck through again, pooling in southeast alcove. You kneel, carving a narrow trench with the flat of your ice axe. Slope it toward the sump, lined with straw and charcoal. Water obeys gravity, trickling like tiny bells. You listen until rhythm steadies, then move on. Mid-morning bells from the chapel gong above ground. Their low brass vibration shudders through the earth, nudging frost from rafters. Crystal dust shivers down in dull cascades. You hold breath, count the seconds, prepared to leap aside if the weight above surrenders. But nothing falls except sound. The pit grants a stay of execution. The steward's page appears, face flushed by the climb and by petulance. He brandishes a parchment, an addition to the order. 12 ice pearls, small spheres chipped from purest stock to float in the Baron's mulled wine. You nearly laugh. Such pearls mean wasted shards and 3 times the handling. But the page leaves no room for argument. He is already halfway up the stairs. You salute his vanishing silhouette with the axe's blunt end. You select a block the color of river glass and start napping. The technique came from a traveling Moorish cook who paid with hints instead of coin. Score the block, tap lightly, rotate. Shards pop off like eggshell, leaving rounded shapes. You drop each pearl into a padded basket lined with straw. Fingers numb so thoroughly they belong to someone else. Yet you keep carving until you've birthed a baker's dozen, one for breakage insurance, as always. Lunch, if it can be called that, arrives in the form of barley bread and a heel of salt pork, delivered by the cooper's daughter. She never speaks, but always leaves the food atop the same crate, then disappears. You're convinced the steward records each crumb. Savoring too slowly risks accusations of theft. You gulp bread dry and chew pork until jaw aches. A sip from your skin of stale cider melts crystals on your lips. Feast fit for frost goblins. Noise from above. Hooves, voices, the crash of harness. Messengers from the capital have arrived. Messengers mean gossip, and gossip means servants will gather near kitchen hearths, stealing heat that might otherwise reach the ice. The pit likes that arrangement. It keeps you here, guardianship undiluted. You resent, but accept. Throughout the afternoon, you cycle through repairs. A vertical fissure along the north wall requires a butterfly brace, 2 planks pegged through the crack like sutures. You drill pilot holes with the auger until fingertips purple. Pegs hammered, you smear resin to seal wood from moisture. Every motion measured, waste nothing. You hum an old harvest song to set pace. Voice echoes thin, sounding like distant choir boys lost beneath glacier. Twilight filters in, purple and bruised. Your satchel now half empty, only one rush torch left and mercy rags soggy. You swap torches, ignite, extinguish spent stub by crushing under heel. The ice house collects dead torches like trophies. Their blackened stems poke from straw like stakes in a forgotten battlefield. Porters return for final haul. 2 more blocks plus the pearl basket. They chatter about the messengers, news of a border skirmish, taxes tripling, perhaps war. You smile politely, but war only means more meat to store, more bodies to cool, more shifts. You watch them vanish with the load. One toboggan runner catches uneven stone, jerks sideways, basket tilts, pearls roll, clink like dice, but none escape straw lining. Good omen, maybe. You head back to close the void left by extracted blocks, heaving lesser slabs into place, wedging straw. As you work, you imagine yourself the ice, pulled, trimmed, shoved, yet still expected to shine at dinner. You wonder if the ice resents becoming invisible luxury beneath candied fruit. Final inspection. You trace chamber periphery, torch high, seeking black shadows that signal hidden melt. In southeast corner, you find something new, a small wooden token carved like a stag wedged in straw. Children sometimes dare each other to sneak tokens in, marking territory. You pocket it, intending to toss later, but you feel its weight all evening like a secret. Shift end nears. Above, wind howls. Snow whirls down shaft entrance whenever door opens, frosting steps. No one will clear them until morning. You tamp final straw mat, extinguish torch by plunging into snowdrift, sparks hissing to sleep.
Climb ladder, each rung colder than last.
Outside, world is silver. Half moon glints off fresh powder. Somewhere a hound bays, answering winter's hymn. You deliver slate tally to steward. Supplies needed, brace timber, resin, fresh straw, tallow, torches. He eyes list, raises brow, mutters, extravagant, then scribbles something. Whether approval or dismissal, you can't tell.
In bunkhouse, fire barely embers. You rub hands, blow warmth into them, then unroll straw pallet. You consider complaining, maybe to Cook, maybe to Cooper's daughter, about the extra pearls, the cracked beam, the token stag. But words freeze behind teeth. They would sound like bragging or weakness. Instead, you reach for mercy rag, fold it beneath cheek. Body surrenders weight, mind drifts heavy. Dreams arrive, not of sunlit fields or warm taverns, but of frozen palaces with halls of singing glass. In the dream, you are both captive and keeper, polishing walls that loom forever upward. Every footstep reverberates like cathedral bells. Every breath shatters into diamond dust. It is terrible and dazzling, and when you wake before dawn, your face is wet. You pretend it's meltwater, wipe it away, rise. Moonlight barely has time to fade before the new summons arrives, a curt rap on the shutters and a parchment shoved through the crack. Emergency banquet tonight, exotic sorbets, icehouse master to provide crystalline shards fit for a queen's reflection, no imperfections. No signature, just the sigil of the steward pressed in black wax like an ink-smudged spider daring you to complain. So, you skip the crust of porridge cooling on the hearthstone, sling your satchel, and follow your own footprints back across the courtyard. Wind is livid today, tearing banners off poles and flinging them over kennel roofs. Each gust steals warmth straight through your cloak, but you take comfort in one truth. Nothing down in the pit blows anywhere. Air stagnates, damp and loyal. Down the stair you descend, one hand on the rope banister, the other steadying a new bundle of rush torches. Your boots crunch through the shallow drift that has infiltrated overnight. The snow squeals like a mouse in a cat's teeth. Halfway down the spiral, a thought needles you. Did you dream that wooden stag, or is it still in your pocket? You pat. The lump answers. Real then. Mystery can wait. Inside, the chamber is darker than memory. Last night's torch smoke has settled on every surface, dulling the mirror ice to a charcoal sheen. You jab a fresh brand into the coals of the wall brazier, luxury installed years ago to keep spirits from freezing solid, according to an optimistic prior. The brand spits, catches, and the familiar amber glow spreads, revealing the task ahead. 21 blocks remain in the prime tier, but at least 8 show hairline fractures. The steward's order demands perfection, flaws invisible even at candle distance. First, you harvest snow. Loose powder from the upper shelves is swept into a wooden hod, then tamped around weak edges of more valuable blocks. The old mason's trick: pack the crack with snow, dribble water, wait, and nature forges a seamless weld. You set the first repair, counting out 60 heartbeats while the water trickles and flash freezes into transparent scar tissue. On the 61st beat, you breathe again. A distant clang echoes. Kitchen staff dumping cauldrons. Sound travels strange underground. Sometimes it bends like light through glass, arriving sweet, then sour. You pause, listen. No alarm bells, no screams, just workaday noise. Still, you note it. Life is safest when nothing changes, and noise is change. Next comes the sculpting. Sorbet shards must be thin enough to dissolve like first snow on a child's tongue, yet strong enough to survive the parade from pit to pastry. You choose a block the color of moon milk, hoist it onto the hewn oak bench, and set your chisel. Tap, rotate, tap. Shards flake off in translucent petals. They glitter vividly for one glorious heartbeat before heat from your breath clouds them. You slide each flake delicately, reverently, onto a linen spread over a copper tray chilled overnight. Copper hoards chill like a miser hoards coin. You slip deeper into the rhythm. Chisel, brush, rotate, until thoughts blur. Time no longer counts itself in minutes, but in petals and breaths. The only break comes when you sense, rather than see, a presence behind you. You pivot, torch raised. It's the cooper's daughter again, but today she's bold enough to speak. Her voice is rough, like a file on soft wood. "Steward says you'll need these." She thrusts a leather pouch forward. You open it, long steel tongs tipped with bone. "Claw picks," she explains. "Cook insists the shards must look like swan feathers, says fingers leave unsightly ridges." Her eyes study the ice petals already piled. You detect admiration, or is it sympathy? Hard to tell in torchlight. You thank her, but she lingers, scuffing boots. Finally, she blurts, "There's talk of moving the ice house." You laugh. Who moves a hillside? She shrugs, says nobles wanted closer to the new banquet hall, less distance for servants to carry. You see it then, a vision of men digging, tearing your sanctuary open to daylight, killing the entire cache in one afternoon. The idea leaves you hollow. You give her a stiff nod. She departs. Work resumes, but now the pit feels fragile, like a secret whispered too loudly. Every hammer tap echoes with menace. You hurry, finishing 4 trays, one more than ordered, always an offering to fate. When the porters arrive, they bear wicker baskets lined with wool. Each tray slides in like pages into a book. You supervise the stacking, insisting on straw separators. Porters sigh but obey. They remember last winter's disaster when shards fused mid-journey, producing a single crystalline slab that had to be smashed by mallet. The cook had cried real tears over ruined poetry. As they leave, you hand one porter a folded scrap. Your requisition for fresh pitch, new chisels, straw, torches, and 3 sacks of sawdust for long-lasting insulation. He groans at the weight, but pockets it. With the cavern momentarily yours again, you address the cracked beams marked yesterday. You swap the X-scarred brace with a new timber, driving pegs until echoes ring like drums. Sweat beads along your hairline, then crystallizes. You pause only when breath fog thickens too much to see plainly. Then you lift the mercy rag, white brow and beard, and continue. Break time, in theory, arrives mid-afternoon. You crouch near the brazier, letting palms toast. From the satchel, you retrieve the wooden stag, studying it anew. It's crudely carved, yet expressive, head raised as though sniffing distant forests.
Who would smuggle hope into a place built for preservation? You decide to keep it. Tuck it inside shirt, close to skin. Let it drink warmth.
But the pit resents sentiment. Above, a muffled crack. Dust sifts down. You stand, scanning the ceiling. Another crack, sharper, nearer. You race toward the western wall, just as a fist-sized stone drops, splintering on impact. Immediate inventory. Roof beams intact, but the drip-to-drain channel 2 levels up has likely frozen solid, expanding, prying stones apart. You grab the ice axe and ascend the maintenance ladder so quickly, rungs blur.
At the outflow gutter, you discover the culprit, a wad of frozen straw plugging the chute. Water backed up, turned to ice, shoved masonry. You hack, chip, curse softly. Frozen shards spray. A few pelt your cheek. Finally, the clot breaks free, tumbling down the chute and splashing into the sump below. You listen. Water gurgles again. Relief, but also fear. Had that stone landed on a porter or you? The pit giveth, the pit taketh. By dusk, you've completed the inspection loop 3 times, unwilling to trust your own eyes. Every corner, every stack, every brace passes muster. You log items in the slate. Roof joint strain, monitor. Replace ladder rung 8, splintered. Pitch buckets low. Then you shoulder cloak and ascend to night. Snow now whirls sideways, chasing you across the yard. In the steward's antechamber, you deposit the slate. He eyes your new request for sawdust and scowls, but signs. His quill scratches like a rodent in the wainscot. "Tomorrow," he mutters. You bow and depart, grateful he didn't ask about the extra tray. You'd rather the cook credit divine providence. Bunkhouse again, embers again. But tonight, the other laborers gather around a contraband bottle of Applejack. They wave you over, jesting that you smell colder than a corpse. You raise the bottle, inhale fumes like summer dusk, then decline. Cold work demands clear veins. They shrug, continue boasting. One tells of a ghost in the corridors, a lady in frost-white veils. You consider sharing your falling stone tale, but decide against it. Fear spreads faster than frost. You slide onto pallet, clutch wooden stag. Outside, the storm intensifies, beating shutters like drums. You imagine tomorrow's work, snowdrifts in the shaft, melted runnels at the base, blocks sweating secrets. But for now, you focus on the stag's steady heartbeat, imagined yet comforting. Sleep trickles in like slow water, freezing into quiet strength. When you surface hours later, somewhere between dream and dawn, a thought crystallizes. The ice house will never move. Stone hates change, straw hates wind, and you, strange sentinel, hate letting go. If nobles order the relocation, they'll need new servants because you will bury yourself in this pit before surrendering. You laugh softly at the melodrama, then fall back asleep. Sparks pop as the others feed the fire. Their murmur fades while one of them hums an off-key lullaby. You smile. Music for the ice keeper. Better than chapel choruses. Before dreams reclaim you, you whisper a private vow. Tomorrow, you will carve a second stag, plant it in the darkest alcove. Let the pit have its guardian, the twin you never were allowed to be above ground. Sunrise crawls across the yard like a reluctant cat. Reluctant because the wind still howls and the snow no longer drifts. It walls itself into ramparts that scrape your knees by the time you stomp through them. You left the bunkhouse before anyone else stirred, driven by a dream that refused to melt. The ice house roof collapsing while nobles danced above, oblivious, silk shoes skidding across marble tiles as cold steam hissed up through cracks. You woke gasping, fingers clamped around the wooden stag. Now the stag rides in your pocket again, a splinter of courage and superstition. At the shaft's rim, you raise your lantern and peer down. The rope ladder sways in the gale, boards creak, frost furs each rung like white moss. First job, clear the shaft. Snow must not clog the descent if porters arrive later. You set the lantern in a nook, grip the shovel, and start heaving. Each scoop floats a moment, glittering, before wind whips it away. The effort sets sweat prickling under wool layers, but the cold drinks it instantly. When you finally descend, the cold hits different, sharper, purer, as though the pit inhaled night and refuses to exhale anything but judgment. Torchlight flickers off the walls, revealing last evening's repairs. The patched block seams glimmer like healed skin. Good, but a new problem waits. Fine hoarfrost dusts the chisel bench, meaning airborne moisture has snuck in, a leak somewhere high. You scan upward. There, a seam where lime mortar has flaked, leaving a pink tongue of sandstone exposed. You climb the service ladder, wedge shoulders against stone, and smear fresh pitch with a gloved thumb. The smell, tar, smoke, pine resin, swirls in torch glow. One wrong move, and pitch dribbles onto clothing, freezing into a rigid blot that steals heat for hours. You move precisely, breathing shallow. Back on the floor, you inventory stores. 12 full blocks in prime shelf, 8 in middle shelf, 4 scrap blocks for chipped work, 3 pails of clean snow, 1 dwindling bucket of straw. Sawdust shipment hasn't arrived. You mutter a curse on the steward's head. Sawdust extends ice life by a fortnight. Without it, meltwater creeps sooner. Iron tools rust faster, and the floor puddles. As if conjured by the complaint, footsteps echo above. Hello? It's the cooper's daughter again, Ida, her name you learned from kitchen gossip. She appears at the rim, hair blown sideways. Rope hoist stuck, she calls. Something wedged the pulley. You grimace. That hoist is lifeline for hauling heavy blocks. You tell her to toss a cord, ascend swiftly. Wind slaps your face on the rim, but you see the issue. The pulley's iron axle frosted over, then fractured the oak yoke. Splinters jut like broken teeth, lodging the wheel. You kneel, pry, chip ice. Ada steadies the ladder, cheeks flushed scarlet. She laughs unexpectedly. Looks like the sky's waging war on us. You grunt agreement, but inside, something warms. Company lessens the white silence. Together, you unseat the pulley, lash a temporary bypass using an unused cart axle. She fetches leather thonging. You weave, knot, test. The makeshift wheel spins poorly, but spins. She whistles in admiration. Could be a carpenter in you, she says. You answer, Pitt teaches all trades. A horn blares from the ward gate. Delivery wagon. Ida's eyes widen. Sawdust, you hope. She runs to signal them. You hurry back down, prepare the receiving estuary, clear floor, spread burlap sacks.
The porters arrive with barrels of sawdust and 2 cedar crates sealed with wax. The crates bear the royal crest, not stewards, so you break the wax carefully. Inside, crystalline sugar in linen bags and a letter.
You untie the ribbon. Script, elegant but hurried. For tomorrow's solstice feast, ice sculptures of fruit required. Apples, pears, 1 pomegranate. Sugar glaze demanded for luster. Deliver by vespers. Signed by the princess's secretary. Deliver tomorrow. You calculate, carving full fruit shapes eats hours. Sugar glaze means heating syrup, brushing, quick chilling, dangerous near open flame, and priceless cargo. You cannot refuse.
Porters dump sawdust where directed, then leave. You mix the sawdust with existing stocks, layering between blocks like pages in a secret book. Temperature drops a finger. Good. Next, design. You chalk rough outlines on a scrap plank, estimating dimensions. Apple first, 2 fists diameter, spherical but with slight crown. You mark a block for rough sawing. Chisel strokes ring like muted bells. Chips glare rainbow colors. You slip into rhythm until midday torpor fogs mind. You pull yourself out with a swallow of the bitter root tea stored in a flask on shelf. Tea scalds tongue, thaws thoughts. Half-shaped apple sits before you. Surfaces still faceted. You fetch a rasp, bronze teeth encrusted with frost, and shave planes into smooth curves. Each stroke sings. When surface gleams candle clear, you carve the dimple for stem. Stem will be sugar, you decide. Pear next. Tapered neck, plump belly. You flip the block vertical, use longer chisel, feeling for fracture lines. 1 slip could cleave it in 2. You work slow. Exhale through nose. Feel the tool breathe with you. Hours pass. Torch stumps dwindle. 1, then another. You light fresh ones, but stores shrink. Must ration. You douse the brazier. Tonight, warmth is luxury. Evening gloom descends. You carry sculptures to a quarantine shelf away from foot traffic. They stand like ghosts, moon-pale fruit waiting for sin. You cover them with linen soaked in brine, old trick to prevent surface fog. Climb out for supper. Hallways buzz, castle servants hustle, rehearsing feast logistics. You dodge a pageboy lugging candelabra, narrowly avoid scullery maids swishing basins. Kitchen smells of venison, clove, rosemary. You envy them, their heat, their chatter. You snatch a heel of bread and cheese, slide along wall unnoticed. In the steward's office, you find him dictating to a scribe. You present the royal letter. He skims, sighs theatrically. Always more demands. But he authorizes extra resin and sugar lumps. Don't fail, he warns. Princess remembers faces. Night shift. Sugar glaze. You requisition a copper cauldron, haul it down to pit with caution. Fire in an ice house is treason, yet glaze demands heat. You choose the smallest wall niche, line floor with flat stones, build thumb-high ember bed from charcoal you smuggled weeks earlier for just such crisis. You set the cauldron, pour river water, tip sugar slowly. It melts into amber syrup, scenting air with burnt caramel. You stir with iron rod, mindful sparks do not leap. When syrup reaches thread stage, you extinguish embers with scoop of snow. Steam explodes, droplets pock ice walls. You hurry the cauldron to sculptures. Using new bone tongs, you dip a small ladle, drizzle over apple. The syrup sheets, freezes to glassy sheen. Lantern light refracts, the fruit glows like captive sunrise. You repeat on pear, on pomegranate ridges, carved with painstaking care. Sudden clatter above, footsteps, frantic voices. You freeze. Someone descends ladder 2 rungs at a time. Torch flares reveal a kitchen boy, red-faced. "Urgent," he wheezes. "The steward is dead drunk. Kitchen in chaos. Princess wants sculptures delivered tonight, not tomorrow. She changed menu." You blink. Tonight? Impossible. Yet refusal equals ruin. You glance at sugar still cooling, glaze not fully set. Transport now risks fingerprints, cracks, but no choice. You order boy to bring extra straw-lined crate. While he runs, you blow on sculptures, rotate them, speed chill with handfuls of grated ice. Boy returns. You nestle each fruit in separate straw nests, wedge with linen. You secure lid, stamp with steward's seal. You carry wax copy for emergencies. Together, you haul crate up shaft, tottering on ladder. In courtyard, the wind has died. Stars stab black velvet sky. Kitchen corridors blur. You deliver crate to pantry guard, who eyes you suspiciously but ushers you to banquet hall's antechamber. Inside, candles by the 100 blaze. Long tables groan with silver covers. Musicians tune viols. The princess herself, no older than 16, stands by a floral display, directing pages. She turns as you approach. Eyes the color of river ice sweep crate. "Open," she commands. Your stomach flips. You unlatch lid, peel back linen. Sugar glass fruit glitter under chandeliers. Gasps ripple from onlookers. The musicians even pause mid-scale. The princess lifts the apple with gloved fingers, holds it to light. She smiles, a quick, crooked thing, and nods. "These will suffice." Suffice. You exhale. A steward's aide presses a wax tablet into your palm, payment chit, and, shockingly, a gold penny. "From Her Grace," he whispers, "for excellence." You bob a bow, retreat. Feet numb, heart racing. Gold penny. It will feed you a month. Outside in snow hush, adrenaline drains, leaving tremble and fatigue. You pocket penny, wrap cloak tight, head back toward bunkhouse. Midway, footsteps crunch behind. You turn. Edda emerges from shadows. "Heard you saved the feast," she says. She hands you a bundle, 2 hot pasties tied with twine. "Fuel," she explains. You sit on a root bench by the wall, share the food. She asks about the wood stag. You show it, confess you carved its twin for the pit. She snorts. Superstitious. But she touches the carving gently. Maybe we all need a guardian. Silence grows comfortable. Snowflakes start again, drifting slow, lazy. She stands, says goodnight, but as she turns, she adds, "I'll carve something too, for the other side of the shaft. A hare, maybe." You nod, warmed more than the pasty. Return to pit once more for shutdown. You check ember bed, cold. Sugar drips, solid. Walls, silent. You whisper thanks to the twin stag standing watch. On slate, you write only one line. "Miracles cost torches. Send more." Back in bunkhouse, laborers snore. You collapse on pallet,
But instead of sleep, envision tomorrow, replacing pulley properly, carving spare fruit in case of breakages, drafting storage plan for warmer months, and beyond that, maybe petitioning to roof the shaft, reduce snow intrusion. With a gold penny, you can bribe a mason to draw plans. Eyes finally close. Last thought is of the princess biting into sugar apple, hearing the impossible crackle of winter preserved. Your work fleeting, melting, yet in that instant, perfect. Cold finds the cracks you missed. It curls under the bunkhouse door long before dawn, slipping between the split boards, stroking faces and waking every sleeper at once. A chorus of moans ripples through the straw mattresses as men and women stagger upright, breath puffing like chimney smoke. You, wide-eyed with that half-dream sense of impending trouble, are already lacing boots when the watch bell throws its clang across the yard. 1 toll means rise. 2 tolls means deliveries. 3 means disaster. It rings 3 times. You fling on your cloak and barrel outside, nearly colliding with Ida as she races from the cooper's quarters. A frantic steward's aide is sprinting across the packed snow, shoes skidding. He sees you both and waves a parchment above his head like it's on fire, which, in a sense, it is. "Storeroom wall collapsed," he gasps. "Blocked the north shaft. The princess demands more ice, now. Feast runs 3 days. South Pit must double allotment." South Pit. Your pit. The one you already stretched to the limit last night. Wind whips your cloak into a bat's wing as you bolt toward the rim. Ida keeps pace, cheeks raw red. Past the stables, past the frozen fountain where sculpted water once leapt in summer. Under you, the ground shudders with the roll of wagon wheels. Porters dragging empty crates, hoping you can somehow fill them. The south shaft yawns before you like a mouth missing teeth. Snow cornices have chipped off the parapet. A new rope ladder dangles. Ida's father apparently replaced the frayed one at dawn. You grab the rails, descend into a breath colder than memory. Your lantern sputters but holds. Halfway down, you hear an unfamiliar drip. At the floor, you locate it. A rivulet threading along the back corner, black as ink against blue-white ice. Meltwater creeping straight for the prime shelf. A fissure in the wall you patched yesterday must have widened overnight. Ida lowers another lantern, then clambers down quick as a squirrel. Together, you kneel beside the leak. It's minor now, but once sunlight angles into the shaft, warmth will coax a trickle into a stream, and your whole winter reserve will slump like wine-soaked cake. You hack out a shallow trench with your pick, channeling water toward a drainage hole, then smear fresh pitch over the fissure. Pitch won't set in this cold. You need mortar mix that freezes hard. Ada volunteers to fetch lime slurry. They have some in the mason's shed, she says. She climbs, vanishes. Alone, you turn to the stacks. 12 blocks on prime shelf, 8 middle, 4 scrap. Memory corrects itself. Last night, you designated 2 scrap blocks for contingency sculpting. They remain. You'll need them. But first, sawdust layering. The storm packed new snow inside the shaft, dusting blocktops. Snow is enemy. It melts faster than sawdust, encourages rime on surfaces. You brush each block clean with a straw broom, feeling the minutes bleed away. Ida returns quickly, but she isn't alone. The princess's steward, we'll call him Doublet because he always wears 2 layers too many, descends ladder with her, huffing. Behind him, a page balances a wooden box. Doublet's eyes widen as he sees you. "No time for drilling," he snaps. "The northern pits lost half its stock. Her Grace wants fresh ice slopes for the table fountains before second bell."
Slopes? You repeat. They don't want blocks. They want curved slides the cellars will place pewter bowls on so chilled wine can trickle over cascades of fruit. That means shaping long, thin ramps, fragile as sugar glass. You glance at your reserve. 12. If you sacrifice 6 large blocks, you can carve 3 slopes plus a spare. But you still need cubes for ale barrels later tonight.
4 slopes, Doublet insists, and snow-fine shavings to pack flagons. He thrusts the box forward. Inside, little pewter molds shaped like swans. Of course, swan ice figurines too. By third bell, make it happen. He climbs away in a fury of layered wool. Lantern light recedes, leaving you and Ida blinking at swan molds as though they're lion's jaws. You exhale once, deliberately. Then, action. "Ida, you take the molds," you say. "We'll pour slush in them after we saw the slopes. First, help me mark the cut lines." "Saw work is brutal down here. Blade teeth shriek. Ice dust coats eyebrows. Shoulders ache." You set up the 2-man saw. Ada grabs the rear handle. Rhythm is everything. Pull, push, whisper count under breath. Steam rises from your collars, though air is knife cold. 1 block, 2, 3. Offcuts pile like crystal coffins. You tip them aside, drag fresh ones into position. Saw line finished. You switch to chisels to shape a gentle convex surface. Imagine a hillside buried under February moonlight. That's the curve you chase. Chips fly. Some shards land on your tongue. Taste of ancient river. A trick. You run a birch strip scraper across the cut, planar flexing to leave a satin finish. Ida never used that tool. She watches, then copies, and soon her stroke matches the grain. 4 slopes stand at last. You brace them upright against shelf braces, pack sawdust along their bases so they don't warp as microfractures equalize. Now, the swans. You lack snow slush, but you have the grated scrap from sawing, powder fine. You shovel it into cedar tub, pour brine concentrate from the salt barrel, stir until it resembles wet sugar. Scoop into molds, tamp lightly, seal lids. Set them into a straw-lined crate and bury in sawdust to quick freeze. While they set, you shave more dust for packing flagons, channel meltwater outflow, repitch leak. Lime hasn't arrived. Footsteps again. Ida's father, the cooper, hoisting a keg of sweet wine for the princess's fountain test. He eyes the slopes and nods, clearly impressed. He leaves behind a small pot of the lime slurry and a note. From masons, use sparingly, more when sun-up fully. You pop lid. Paste inside is thick as bread dough. You smear over crack, scoring surface so it grips. Momentary respite. Ida leans against a stack, panting. You fish out the wooden stag from your pocket. Notice its twin cracks. Heat from your hand all night made the grain split. Superstition shivers through you. You pass it to Ida. Carve the hair, you whisper. She nods, tucks stag away. Third bell looms, distant clang echoing faint. You haul slopes into crate. 2 fit snug, 3rd diagonal, 4th balanced delicate. Swans? You crack open molds. 2 perfect, 3rd missing a beak, 4th shattered on demold. No time. 3 will have to do. Pray they arrange them artfully. You line crate lid with hessian, stamp seal, shout for porters. When the crate lifts out of shaft, cheers erupt topside. Everyone is that desperate. You slump, knees soft. But day isn't won. Night feasts ale cubes still undone. Leak could widen, and torch stock is almost nil. A hush falls. Ada tilts her head. Do you smell that? Smoke. Not tar, not pitch, oak smoke. Downshaft air seldom carries smoke. You and Edda exchange dread. Lantern low, you fan it. A wisp curls from Fisher's side. Your ember bed earlier cold, but maybe stray sparks survived under rubble of charcoal. The sugar glaze embers? You inspect niche, dark, but smell persists. You send Edda upward to trace it. While she climbs, you examine walls. No discoloration. Could be external. Perhaps the north pit's collapse ignited something. Her voice filters down. Smithy chimney backdraft, smoke curling through vent holes. Relief, but not complete. Smoke draws heat. Heat draws melt. You can't plug vent holes, they carry stale air out, but you can redirect draft. You scurry up, find vent grate along parapet. You jam a folded scrap of soaked linen into northernmost vent, forcing smoke to exit east side away from shaft throat. Air clears. By dusk, slopes have impressed the banquet hall. Word trickles back via grooms. Princess demanded to know artisan's name. Steward muttered it grudgingly. You anticipate nothing, but Ida is giddy. We should ask for pay rise, she jokes over thin soup in the staff refectory. You snort. Let me keep my bunk. I'll call it even. Later, lantern in hand, you patrol pit again, alone. Sculptures safe, leak sealed, sawdust flush. You scratch a new line on slate. North pit collapsed. South pit compensating X4. Request brick buttress before spring thaw. You sign it not with your name, but with a crude carving of the stag. Someday, inspectors will wonder who that symbol belonged to. Faint footfalls echo, and Ada descends with a parcel. She unwraps it. A small hare carved from spare ice block. Ears perked, posture alert. She sets it facing the stag across the aisle. Ice guardians, she whispers. I think they can share the watch from now on. You smile, a rare, full thing. Then something remarkable. She reaches, presses a thin leather thong into your palm. Threaded on it hangs the gold penny, drilled through and burnished. Wear it round your neck, she says. Could be your crest. You open your mouth, but she adds, you saved tonight. Keep it as reminder. You fasten the thong, penny resting warm against skin. You thank her with no words, only a nod stronger than the stone vaults above. Lanterns flicker, the hare's eyes glitter, the stag stands sentinel. Outside, castle bells mark midnight. Tomorrow, sun will bite, cracks will open, and nobles will demand fountains shaped like dragons spewing chilled wine. But for now, 2 carved creatures guard winter's heart,
And you, ice keeper, carver, dream dodger, allow yourself 3 heartbeats of quiet pride before climbing to a sleep you've earned 100 times over.
If that final sprint through frost and fury kept you awake in the best way, slam that like button like you're sealing a leaky ice wall and drop a psh in the comments so I know you made it all the way to the bottom of the pit with me. Got another bizarre medieval job you'd never survive? Tell me, your suggestion might frost its way into our next 7-part nightmare. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. We keep history chill, strange, and occasionally sugar-glazed. Until our next midnight shift, sleep deep and keep an eye on those ember beds.